On the quiet shores of Lake Superior, Glensheen was built to be a family retreat, and it was for some time, but no amount of money could keep the worst of human nature at bay. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. In 1853, Chester Congdon was born in Rochester, New York to a family with deep colonial American roots. A bright student, young Chester studied law at Syracuse University and graduated in 1875 and was admitted to the bar in New York just a couple years later. After a brief stint teaching school in Wisconsin, he moved west to Minnesota in 1879 to seek greater opportunities. Settling in St. Paul, he established himself as a capable attorney and even served as an assistant U.S. attorney for Minnesota in the early 1880s. The real turning point in Chester's career came in 1892 when he was lured into the booming port city of Duluth. Duluth at the time was flourishing as a shipping hub, especially for the rich iron ore deposits of northern Minnesota. Chester partnered with his friend, William W. Bilson, to form a law firm and soon landed a pivotal client, Henry W. Oliver's mining company. Oliver, a titan in the steel industry second only to Andrew Carnegie, was battling for control of the Mesabi Iron Range, one of the greatest iron ore discoveries of the age. Chester was hired to represent Oliver's interest in negotiations with prospectors over mining rights of the Mesabi Range. This legal work was lucrative and gave Chester an inside track on the mining business. Chester began investing in iron mines himself. When Henry Oliver later had to sell most of his shares to Carnegie's newly formed U.S. Steel Corporation, Chester seized the opportunity. He bought up cheap mining land on the West Mesabi Range and then profited handsomely by leasing those properties to U.S. Steel as demand for iron ore skyrocketed. The once humble young lawyer rapidly became a very wealthy man. By the early 1900s, he was a millionaire with diverse business interests. He served as president of several mining companies and even as a bank's vice president, extending his influence across mining, finance, and land development. By the early 20th century, Chester A. Congdon was truly a man of means and stature. He and his wife Clara, whom he had married in 1881, had a large family of 7 children and moved among the upper echelons of Minnesota society. It was at the height of this success that Congdon turned his sights to building the ultimate dream house, a mansion that would reflect his achievements and provide a lasting home for his family. That mansion would be called Glensheen. In 1901, as his fortunes grew, he began planning a massive residence on a 22-acre wooded tract along Duluth's Lake Superior shoreline. For the task, the Congdons hired one of Minnesota's premier architects, Clarence H. Johnson Sr., to design the mansion in a style inspired by the English country manners of the Jacobean era. The result was a stately, 3-story brick mansion trimmed with buff-colored stone and topped with steep gabled roofs and tall chimneys. Johnston borrowed classic Jacobean Revival elements such as ornate gable profiles and clustered chimneys to give Glensheen the romantic look of a Tudor-era estate. At the same time, the layout and construction reflected modern sensibilities. The structure was built with fireproof brick, including steel beams, and featured 16-inch thick floors made of hollow clay tiles for durability. Glensheen's interior decor was as thoughtfully crafted as his exterior architecture. Famed interior design firm William A. French Company of St. Paul was commissioned to furnish the mansion, and much of the furniture was custom-made to harmonize with each room's design. The decor blended several popular design movements of the era. Many rooms exhibited the refined ornamentation in the late Victorian style, while others embraced the simpler lines and handcrafted ethos of the arts and crafts movement. There were even touches of Art Nouveau in some light fixtures and decorative details. Rich materials were used throughout the home. Panels and trim of mahogany, oak, walnut, and cypress wood, sumptuous wool and silk textiles on the walls, and accents of stained glass and gold leaf. In addition to its beauty, Glensheen was technologically ahead of its time. The house was equipped with modern conveniences that few private homes had in the early 1900s. It had a central heating system and even a then cutting-edge central vacuuming and humidifying system built into the walls. Because electric service in Duluth could be unreliable in that era, the mansion's lighting fixtures were designed to use both electricity and gas, ensuring the house could stay illuminated even during power outages. Hot running water was available throughout the house, and the estate featured one of the first residential intercom or telephone systems in the region so that servants and family members could communicate across the sprawling home. All utilities, water, gas, electricity, and even the delivery of coal for heating, were ingeniously routed underground through a service tunnel so as to not disturb the estate's picturesque landscape. Outside, a 60,000-gallon reservoir was built on higher ground to gravity-feed water for the gardens and the fountains, providing enough pressure to shoot water nearly 75 feet into the air. That being said, the mansion did not stand alone in splendor. It was the centerpiece of a fully planned estate. Landscape architect Charles Wilfred Levitt Jr. of New York was hired to design Glensheen's grounds, and he worked to integrate the mansion with its natural surroundings. The Congdons insisted that much of the original North Shore vegetation, the birch, maple, and spruce trees, be preserved, lending the estate its glen character of a forested retreat. Levitt added winding trails, rustic stone bridges over the property's creeks, and terraced formal gardens near the house, striking a balance between wilderness and manicured beauty. To make the estate largely self-sufficient, the grounds included extensive vegetable and flower gardens, a greenhouse for year-round plant cultivation, an orchard, a cow barn for fresh milk, and even a chicken coop. There was also a carriage house, with stables for horses and space for carriages, later converted to garages for automobiles, a gardener's cottage, and a boathouse on the Lake Superior shore for the family's recreational boating needs. All told, Glensheen was not just a mansion, but a fully realized estate designed for both luxury and practical self-reliance. Building this masterpiece took 3 years and 9 months, finally reaching completion by 1908. The total cost was about $854,000, an astronomical sum in 1908 and roughly equivalent to $30 million today. After enjoying only a few years in his beloved Glensheen, Chester's life came to an abrupt end. In November 1916, while on a visit to St. Paul, he experienced a fatal heart attack at the age of 63. Chester's widow Clara continued to reside at Glensheen for decades after his death, lovingly maintaining the estate as a family home. She lived to be 96, passing away in 1950 in the same grand house that she and Chester had built together. Following Clara's passing, Glensheen remained in the family for another generation. By the 1960s, however, maintaining such a large estate had become a challenge. In 1968, the Congdon made a pivotal decision. They donated Glensheen and its grounds to the University of Minnesota Duluth, ensuring the property would be preserved and used for public benefit. Chester's youngest daughter, Elizabeth Congdon, was granted a special life estate as part of this arrangement, allowing her to continue living in her childhood home for the rest of her days. Then, on June 27, 1977, a shocking tragedy struck that shattered the mansion's peace. On that day, 83-year-old Elizabeth Congdon and her night nurse Velma were found unresponsive inside Glensheen. The crime immediately drew national attention. Suspicion fell upon Elizabeth's adopted daughter Marjorie and Marjorie's husband Roger Caldwell. Caldwell was eventually convicted of the double homicide and handed 2 life sentences. Despite these tragic events, however, the university moved forward with its plans for Glensheen. In 1979, just 2 years after the tragedy, Glensheen opened its doors to the public as a historic house museum. Visitors were invited to tour the grand rooms and immaculate grounds that once belonged to the Congdons. For a time, parts of the house, such as the 3rd floor and attic, remained closed off, but by the early 1990s, even those areas were made accessible on small group tours after safety improvements. In 1991, Glensheen was officially listed on the National Register of Historic Places, recognizing its significance as an architectural and historical treasure. Today, Glensheen stands as one of Duluth's most beloved attractions, a living museum that transports guests back to the early 20th century. Because the Congdon family never substantially altered the interiors, the mansion's rooms still contain original furnishings, artwork, books, and personal artifacts, exactly as they were over 100 years ago. Stepping inside, one can easily imagine Chester and Clara welcoming guests into the mahogany-paneled library or the family gathering for breakfast in the sunny arts and crafts dining nook. The estate's beautiful gardens are meticulously maintained, and the lakefront views remain as inspiring as ever. In the end, Glensheen stands not only as a monument to one man's success, but also as a living museum of Minnesota's heritage, a place where history truly comes home. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Glensheen? Did you have a favorite room? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.